Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Dane from NYYU. We'd like to welcome you to the Yankee Farm Report with John Brophy, Nick Simmons, and of course the great Bobby Baseball. Bobby, how you doing today?
Very well. How about yourself?
Not too bad. So, Nick, first things first, we want to jump in the Caleb Ferguson trade. We know that we picked up $750,000 in IFA money. We've also picked up some other money from the Kiner Delgado trade. Do you have an idea where that's going?
Yeah, so this basically long story short, they should have around somewhere between 1.1 to 1.5 million dollars left. So there's going to be three options that money could be trickled into. I'm gonna give you
Okay.
the most boring to the most exciting. So the
Okay.
most boring is that they move a kid up from the 2025 January 15th class and move him up like they did last year with Jostin Capellian and Yaliel Zapata. So you can see something like that where they move a couple of those kids up and just sign them for a little bit more money. The second thing is there's a shortstop down there named Alfred Siriaco. He's the top shortstop left on the market right now. I know
Right.
he was asking for a decent amount of money. I could see them going for him and signing him for the decent amount of money that's still left out there. And the last one would be, from what else I heard, is that the Yankees are still not out on Roki Sasaki.
Wow.
And I still believe he does go to the Dodgers, but I've had people that say that they have an inside knowledge that he might also still be interested in going to the East Coast and playing for the Yankees. So we'll see what comes out of that. That's the most exciting news I could say. I do still think he ends up as a Dodger. That's still going to be my guess. But for him to the Yankees to still be in that talent pool, I think they're gonna wait it out until he tells them no.
That sounds. Do you guys really think that he's coming over and is going to leave that much money on the table? I mean, if he waits till he's 25, he could probably get somewhere what Yamamoto got.
Yeah,
It's
how
always
old is he?
this.
23, 24 next year?
22, isn't he?
I think next year it'll be 23.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, so he still has a couple more years to wait. I just think that at the end of the day, man, if he can come over, it's always the second contract, right? Because he's going to play right away. No team is signing him, and he's not taking a signing for not a guarantee to come right up to the major league level. Um, so he's going to play right away. That second contract at the age of, 28, 29 is going to be massive still. So he can wait and still get a big contract in the $300 million range. But I mean, Yamamoto's wasn't really an insane contract for the actual value, of the contract. He just got a lot of years and a long time because he was 25.
Bobby, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the only thing is, I don't know what the MLB rules are. Like, if he came over, right, and he's signed a 4-year deal and went on the market, but I don't think that's how it works. I think if he comes over, he's got to get the 7 years of or 6 years of control. So he's 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. He'll be in and on 29. Or, I mean, it could go both ways because, like you said, he is 23. So he's got like 2 or 3 years before he comes over here. I mean, it's a risk, but I don't know what kind of money he's making in Japan to leave over there and come over here.
Well, obviously,
Market
he would
bill.
get
Yeah, he would
sponsored
be,
money.
of course. Yeah, he's gonna get huge money, man. Even if I mean, if you look at Otani took less money to come over here and play, and now he's got $700 million. It's always the second contract in every sport. I've been saying this 9 times out of 10. The second contract's always going to be the biggest one for that player, man. And that's why they go in there, they come in early, try to show off their skills. That's why Juan Soto's going to get $500-600 million because he's so young. It's always based on the second contract. So the earlier you come over, the faster you become a free agent, and that's just what it is.
I gotcha. John, what are your thoughts on Roki Sasaki? Do you see him as a fit for the Yankees?
I think the Dodgers do make the most sense of the two teams. I mean, if nothing else, he'd be joining Otani and Yamamoto over there, and that alone would be the biggest reason that I think he would sign. Never mind anything else. Closer to Japan, obviously. In LA, the big Japan population, I guess you can say, a Japanese population. But then you have, the Hideki Matsui and, like all of the other Japanese players that have played with the Yankees, you would kind of join that history that the Yankees have provided. My biggest concern is, and this is just through a quick Google search of about Sasaki, he has in June he missed his second consecutive start because of an unspecified injury to his right arm. And with the way that the Yankees were, especially with Jack Flaherty and at the trade deadline, not wanting to take a risk on a pitcher that had injuries. In this case, it was his back. But I would expect the Yankees to be a little hesitant, and I don't know if it's because they've been dealing with so many injuries recently or what, but that would be my biggest thing that I think the Yankees would consider passing on him.
I don't think they're going to pass on him for that. I'm be honest with you. I mean, you're going to take that $1.5 million gamble, man. If you're going to give him 1.5 on a kid that's supposed to be the best pitching prospect out of Japan in the last 20, 30 years, I mean, you don't miss on a gamble of that, whether he had an injury, a little injury or not, to be completely
I mean,
honest.
if
1.5 million.
if it's only that kind of money, then yeah. If we're talking like 15, 20, 25 million, that would be a different story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if
It's only going to be little money like that because he's still going to be part of the international free agency rules.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say is, at 25, Yamamoto got what, over $300 million.
Mm-hmm.
You could say everything, I mean, I understand endorsements and stuff like that, but I mean, whoever represents him has got to show that he's making this kind of money outside of his standard contract to even half of that, right? Because even, I would think that you would just wait the 2 years to get. I know, I understand totally, it's a second contract, but he could, does he get a 7 to 10 year deal at 25 over 300 million, or does he take the risk of getting less money now and then hit the market at 29, 30 years old to get that? That's the thing. It's just
But
like,
it's still 3 years out. He's still 3 years away from even coming over. I mean, realistically, that's a long time to wait, and he might want to, put on the spikes now over here and try to dominate at an early age and continue to grow. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't see how it doesn't make sense for him to try to come over to the major leagues, and even if he's going to 3 years pre-arbitration, his arbitration, if he kills it as an ace, is going to be unreal anyway. He's going to be making 25, $30 million anyway. So it's only 3 years that he's going to take, and he's going to be sitting in Japan on a low money 3-year deal and not getting the sponsorships like that he is over here. So, I mean, there are a lot of perks for him to come over right now.
Absolutely. Now, sitting looking at our rotation is going to be very, very full next year already. They didn't move on from Nestor, which we'll talk about in a bit. They're still going to have Heel, Schmidt, Cole, Rodon, and of course, Stroman. Where would Sasaki fit in that rotation for you guys?
you
Right
make
behind Cole. Yeah, right.
you make him fit.
Yeah, right behind Cole. There's no reason he's not behind Cole. I mean, if anything, man, I could see in like 5 years he might be better than Garrett Cole at what he is at that point in his career. So he moves off there. He's just taking the reins there. And to learn from Garrett Cole, that's a pretty amazing guy to learn from, especially with the same kind of stuff. So,
Yeah,
you
there's
know,
probably not a better mentor for him in the world than Garrett Cole right now. But moving into the trade deadline, we heard a number of things that were going on. Number of guys almost got moved. Of course, we had the Jack Flaherty deal that was supposedly in place, but we ended up with Jazz Chisholm and the two pitchers. Do you think they did enough to make them a serious contender for the rest of the year, or did you guys think they should have done more? John,
Well,
let's start with you.
I think kind of yes and no. They didn't have to do anything with the outfield. I think the outfield is both defensively and offensively. They have one of the best, if not the best, outfields in the majors. I mean, you can't really get better than Judge and Soto. And then
No.
you got Verdugo. I mean, he's been a little iffy recently with the offense. But and then you have Grisham as the Gold Glover. We're not going to even talk about his offense because that's not what we're talking about. But, then the infield, I mean, that's kind of where you start to have your concerns because your first baseman is a minor league call up, and he's looked decent. Ben Rice has been good, not great, good. And then you start getting into the questions with Glaber and Volpe. Are they going to be the kind of caliber that you would need to get to a World Series. And there's still questions because they've both been kind of hot and cold all season.
Yeah. See, I think they missed a golden opportunity to deal Gleyber Torres. I think that they probably should have done that. But as we heard that he's a Cashman guy and they didn't want to move on from him. Hey, Bobby, what were your thoughts on them not dealing Glaber?
I mean, I kind of, kind of put it together, like, I guess on Monday.
Uh-huh.
I kind of figured if they were not going to move him, once he played that game on Monday night after making those comments in Boston about playing second base, that they were going
Oh,
to stay with him. But I mean, if you look at the big picture of everything, I mean, I think there's not one trade that happened that I said, oh, I wish Cashman made it. Yeah, sure, he could have got it better. A second lefty for the pen, especially losing, Ferguson, but he traded him away, right?
right.
So, listening to his comments yesterday and listening to everything he was saying, putting together, it was a very limited market. And then you hear today that India was never going to be moved, and Refrenio has still lingering wrist issues, so they were not going to move him. So then it comes down to Diaz, right? And I know people want to Diaz, but he still has 2 years of control. 1 year, then an option. So, but it's still 2 years of control. They want to do that, and probably the price was high. I mean, would you guys trade Lombard or Arias for him?
Yes.
No.
And let me finish with this. And if you did that, you probably would have to trade Torres, and they didn't. They didn't just
Yeah.
do that. So they're going to go to battle. I think that, and we'll probably speak more of this. I think that the two trades that he did make, especially the Jazz deal, I mean, I don't want to say he stole them, but they didn't really. I mean, yes, Ramirez, is going to be is close to a top 100 prospect, but for somebody who's still got 2 more years of value, you're going to go to 3 off seasons with Jazz,
Right.
and that's a lot of value. And
It is.
to get him for that, that's a pretty good move by Cashman.
And he's under a million too, if I remember correctly.
I think
2.5 this year.
now,
So
Nick, what are your
he's got 2 more years of the arbitration.
Okay.
okay? Nick, what are your thoughts on the deadline? Just run through what you thought.
Well, I'm gonna give him a C plus, man. And we kind of talked about this the other day. So I think the moves he got and the moves he made, I give him a B to a B plus. I feel like, Jazz. It's only a week. I'm not gonna go crazy, man. We don't know what the rest of it's gonna be. He had a really hot streak. He's looked good so far, man. And maybe he's just, we may have, I know we reported that he has clubhouse issues. It might just be he's a really bad loser, man. That stuff doesn't look good when you lose and you're on the worst team ever. That's where, people can say, well, he's just trying to showboat just out there. So it's just a lost mentality kind of thing. And he came over here and it looks great when he's hitting 3-run home runs, putting the Yankees up, and that stuff works for that. Um, I feel like the international bonus pool money was good because I know kind of what they're looking to do there. Caleb Ferguson had no spot
Mm-mm.
there. And then I mean the pen pieces lighter. I mean Jack Neely was the one that for me I would have liked to see him come up here for the Yankees. I feel like that's the piece that I wish would have been there. But Mark Leiter's not going to be a terrible piece, and then De Los Santos, man, they're just hoping a reclamation project with Matt Blake. That's really what it is. But what I will say is I'm gonna give him an A plus because he didn't give away a Roger Arias, a Lombard, a Dominguez, or any of that play because there was no player out there worth any of that right now. And then so he's gonna get an A plus there for not giving that up. But I'm gonna give him a D minus because he should have shipped Gleyber Torres off and he should have moved Nestor Cortez. Nestor Cortez should have been gone 100%. Now what's going to happen is realistically Clark Schmidt's going to come back, and we talked about this too. They're going to put Nestor in the bullpen. I believe he's good as done going in the bullpen. So you're going to cut his value in half already when you could have moved him at, like Bobby was saying on this trade site, 25 value. Now you cut it down to 12, and now in the offseason, when you do move him, you're getting nothing. So of any great value. So that's why I feel like Cashman kind of screwed up. I'm not really upset about not moving Verdugo right now. I mean, I still think that you have to give Dominguez some time to, definitely get healthy, especially for missing most of the year.
Uh-huh.
But that's my grade, man. C plus. That's my take on the entire trade deadline.
John, what about you?
I think the biggest thing, kind of adding to what I was saying before, the biggest thing that I think Cashman did was there was a lot of Rule 5 guys that they moved that were either eligible currently or would be eligible in December
Uh-huh.
that probably would have been gone. Jack Neely, 100% would have been gone.
100%.
So getting something instead of nothing for some of these guys, even if it's not, a top name, like, and I wrote about this on the NYYU website in depth.
Make sure
I
to
would,
check that out, guys. Brophy special.
um, it's good that they got something instead of nothing for these guys, because it was obvious that they weren't going to put Jack Neely in the bullpen. That
Yeah.
seemed, they should have done that weeks ago. And then you could say the same thing with just about anybody. They either didn't have room or they weren't going to call them up to utilize them. There was no spot for Augustine anywhere, unless you get, then you start looking at contracts and all that kind of thing. In the short term, there was no use for Augustine. So seeing him go to Miami and like realistically, all of these guys that the Yankees lost, all the prospects that the Yankees lost, are going to have some sort of playing time for the most part with these different teams because a lot of them are in a rebuild like Miami or there's a need like the Padres got Lockridge, that kind of thing. I think and I hope that a lot of these kids get some major league time because I think a lot of them are good enough for that anyways.
What about a letter grade for you for the overall deadline?
I'm gonna go with a B minus. I think overall with the deadline, just because they didn't get, like I said, they didn't get the top names, but I kind of agree with Cashman that this team that they have can go. I don't know if they can go the distance. That would have been an A kind of a deadline,
Uh-huh.
but I think I agree with Cashman that they have a solid team. They have to put all the pieces together and kind of figure things out.
Now, Bobby, what about you? A letter grade for the deadline?
I think it's a B plus. I mean, not just for now. I think you have. I compared the time after the deadline. I don't know if you guys follow college football, but it's like the time after the regular season ends to the bowl game, and where you're preparing for next year and what's ahead. And I think Nick alluded to keeping Cortez around, right? Uh,
Uh-huh.
Last night I just put out there what I think the arbitration numbers are going to be, and I got somebody from the Yankees, so one of my connections saying those numbers look pretty right, pretty close. So they're looking about like $45 million in arbitration, but the top numbers will be Cortez, Trevino, and Grisham. Those numbers could be, if just rough math, probably around close to $20 million. So those are things where you could have tried to move them now and not deal with it in the winter, or you're going to have to deal with it either not tendering the person or paying, picking them up and then trying to move them. But and I think we see this now where Warren made the spot start the other night. It would not shock me if he makes 5 more starts or close to between now and the end of the year, because if you're planning to move Nestor, right, and you want to have some kind of depth that you can either showcase or you're going to probably keep, because I think I foresee Cortez being moved in the winter for a relief pitcher. I don't know if it's going to be a closer. His value is probably going to be around 7 or 8. What Flaherty's was right now. I don't know I don't know what that's going to get you in the winter, but it should get you some kind of arm or something like that. I don't think Grisham's going to probably have a 1 or a 2 value, so it's not going to really carry. And Trevino, same thing there. So it's gonna you're seeing what the playoff roster is probably going to be, and you also are seeing what kind of what is the pathway this November, December, and so on.
See, for me, I think it was a B. I've been critical of the Jazz Chisholm trade just because I hated to lose Augustine, but I understand why they did it. And seeing him at third base, I think makes a lot of sense. He came up as a shortstop. He's looked good at that position. There's a long-term need there. You get a left-hand bat, and you get somebody that the organization was told to go get. CC wanted him. Derek Jeter wanted him. Juan Soto wanted him. There's a reason they wanted that kid. And I think he can be dynamic in the middle of the back end of that lineup and add a lot to this team. And if you look at the way that lineup is constructed now, you only have two guys over the age of 30 in that lineup. You now have speed, athleticism. You're younger, you're more dynamic all the way through. I think the future of this lineup can be very, very good, but a lot of it's going to hinge on re-signing Juan Soto. So
Yeah.
Everything's going to matter on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're going to keep that number that Steinbrenner wants under 300 million, right, you're going to have to play Wells at catcher, Rice at first, Volpe at shortstop, and probably Dominguez. I think they're holding back Dominguez. You guys probably know better than I would, but I think he's going to be held back until September to keep his rookie status. When you have a draft pick that could be attached to that next year, assuming everyone is healthy. And then next year, you can have probably 4 guys who are 25, 26 or younger in that lineup.
That sounds like what Cashman was kind of alluding to when he was making the comments, Michael K. Show or something along those lines. And it's frustrating, to see someone like Dominguez held back, knowing what his potential is, but I understand why they're doing it.
yeah, I understand it too, but I think if they're going to win in the playoffs, he has to be a part of that lineup. He can be transformative. I mean, look what he did in 8 games last year.
He's your leadoff hitter.
Yeah, exactly. He's your leadoff hitter, and you put him in front of Juan Soto, in front of Aaron Judge. That's as a dynamic of 1, 2, 3 as you'll ever find in baseball, except maybe outside of the Dodgers. I mean,
I think we got to be patient because it's August the 1st, but I think if it's September the 21st and Dominguez is leading off, you kind of have to kind of believe, that he's going to be going into the playoffs. I think right now, you don't want to mess with the apple cart now with Torres and Verdugo right now. When it's the 3rd week of September, you move it into the playoffs, and if Torres got 20 plus errors at second base and he's not hit, playing second base, possibly, what I mean? And that goes for left field too. I made a comment the other day, one of the reasons why they probably didn't trade Grisham is because he's probably playing every day in the postseason in the outfield. You're not sitting a Gold Glove center fielder on the bench.
right. I agree. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, man. I mean, I kind of agree with what you were saying, Dane. Like, I would like to see Dominguez, man, come up at some point. I understand what they're doing too, but I think the other, rookie that I think people are missing is second base, man. You're gonna get a rookie there next year too, 100%. I think Jordan Vivas is gonna be your second baseman next year. I don't see how he isn't. Because they're not gonna re-sign Gleyber Torres. I just don't think that's gonna happen.
I don't either.
Let me ask you a question with that, Nick. Let me ask you something. Do you think either Jorbit or Durbin are going to be playing third base and put Jazz back to second base, or either or? But just
I think it's going to play out. Yeah, it's going to play out whatever happens this year. I think, look, if Jazz looks great at third base all year, I don't think they're going to move him, man. It doesn't make sense to do that. And he took that number because he said he was a fan of Alex Rodriguez, man, and wanted to stay at third base, and he knew he was going to come over here and play some of that. So, look, if he plays good there, I would leave him there because he wasn't really a great second baseman, to be completely honest with you. So if he looks good at third, leave him there. But what I'm intrigued on now is, who they're going to play at second, whether it be Jordan Vivas or Caleb Durbin. And then I want to see what happens with Roger Garius and Lombard because they both had really good Julys. And I'll be honest with you, I put a poll out today on Instagram on who they would prefer, what players or people prefer. I'll be honest with you, right now, Roger Garius is sitting at 67% and Lombard is sitting at 33%. And I've had people that play in the Yankees and are signing with the Yankees and future international classes that have ranked on that. So you have kids that are actually playing on the team with both of them right now that have actually participated in that poll, and they both chose Roger Garius. I'm not going to throw names out there, but they both chose Roger Garius on that. So that tells you who they think is more talented at the end of the day.
And
But
I agree with that too. Yeah, because go ahead, Dane.
no, please.
Um, just I mean, granted, I haven't seen a lot of games in person just because of personal reasons, but the games that I have seen, you could tell the talent is there. The ceiling to me is higher on Arias than it is on Lombard. But Arias has, I think it has like 22, 23 errors, but it's a lot of the silly plays. I think I mentioned that last time. It's on a lot of silly plays that the Yankees can correct. And especially with Arias being the switch hitter, obviously there's a little bit higher of a ceiling there on the offensive side.
Yeah. See, for me, there's something special about for George Lombard. We haven't seen it yet, but I think in 2 years you're going to see a much bigger, stronger, better player. Whether Roderick Arias reaches that ceiling, I agree with both John and Nick that he has the higher ceiling. But what is his chances of reaching that ceiling versus what are Lombard's chances of reaching his?
I think Lombard, the only leg up that I would say that Lombard has is more games, more time in organized games because you don't see a lot of that in the international circuit. So even though that Lombard is a prep kid and he didn't have all of that college experience, you're kind of starting to see there's a teeny little bit more polish with Lombard with the way that he handles the ball because James Cooper, the manager of the Tarpons, plays these kids all over the place. They play second, short, third. You don't know where you're going to get, any of these guys in a given game. So you can kind of see, I think they're kind of figuring out who plays what best where. And you can kind of tell that Lombard is kind of okay at second, but he's better at short. And Arias is good at both short and second. And you can, you know, I can go on and on. But, the short of it is Lombard has more polish because he has those organized games. He'll hit the ceiling quicker, but again, that ceiling is also lower than what you see for Arias.
Course. I mean, that's the number one. I mean, George Lombard was not drafted number one overall, for a reason. I mean, Roderick Arias in his international class was the number one ranked kid, hands down. There was nobody even in the running with that. See, the fun thing, you said 2 years from now, 2 years, they could both be in double A, triple A, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe even at the
Uh-huh.
majors. You don't know if he
Yeah.
breaks out next year. One of those guys goes crazy. To be fair, you're also going to get a shiny new tool come 2 years and Wandy Asijan, so people are going to start saying, "Oh, now you got to throw Wandy in this group with that shortstop talent." You have two dynamic shortstop kids right now in there, and we're going to decide they're going to fight it out, and we'll let them play it out and see who wins there. I'll tell you right now, if Volpe doesn't start hitting more home runs, I think you could see him very quickly move over to the right side on second base because I think he could play there. But
Oh,
you're one of those two kids are going to take his spot. There's no questions asked.
you really believe they'd move Volpe off a shortstop, even though he just won a Gold Glove?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably not gonna win it this year though. I mean, he's looked good, but he's not. I don't think he wins it this year.
That's
See,
I don't think
true.
he's gonna win a
the thing I
shortstop.
have with Volpe right now, I mean, the way the lineup is right now, I think, I was mentioned just a few minutes ago about the young kids we're going to probably see next year. It is the best opportunity to see them at the bottom of the lineup with no pressure on them because both of them, I mean, Rice was leading leadoff on the 4th of July, right? I mean, let's be
Right.
over here, okay?
Yeah.
When you have a longer lineup, and I just love that, first of all, you see the progression of Wells, right? Austin Wells right now is probably going to be your fourth, fifth, sixth play, whatever. But he's very much capable. Those two guys still need work, right? Rice needs
Right.
work. Opie works. Let's see what they are at the end of this year and how it's going to transition into next year. I mean, I think that we had much bigger expectations on what Anthony was going to become, and in
Mhm.
reality, I think he is. I keep on saying this. He is the Brett Gardner of the infield, the right-handed Brett Gardner, where he's going to produce 4 to 5 WAR every year, probably on defense, and never appease a lot of people, and then finish his career with a 40 plus or a 50 plus WAR, which is incredible. Okay.
Right.
So I think right now they are still very high on him. I do agree with Nick though. Let's see what happens in 2 or 3 years and see how this crop of young kids come out there. I do have a question though, because during this trade deadlines, a lot of teams want hitters. I mean, Arias and Lombard were asked in every trade. I think one of the reasons why he held back is because he didn't feel anybody was worth those two guys. My question is there anybody like, they drafted 13 pitchers, right? 13 pitchers they drafted. And a lot of them have really, like, I'm really high on this draft class, right? I really like,
Yes.
today was the last day. This is what we have. Question is, where are the hitters in the organization, right? And especially on the lower levels, because there's no value there. Like now that Ramirez got traded, it's just it's three hitters. They got Arias, Spencer Jones, and they have Lombard. That's it.
And Dominguez. Don't forget Dominguez.
Well, I see him as a major league player.
Yeah.
Right. But besides that, you go around the game and you see other teams who have 5-6 guys who have double that value. And I just wonder, how are they lacking so far behind? And maybe they're going to be getting this through the international route, right? But they need some bats. I mean, unless I'm missing bats down there that you guys are saying, Reggio has started to put something together where he might build some value, but it's still not like, enough where, you see some other teams on their, how much they are ranked in through prospect guides and stuff like that. I don't know, maybe you guys know, the ones that I'm missing or something like this, but they do need
you're just missing the lower levels. Like there's not like a lot of that talent at the higher level, which is what happened with Jack Flaherty. I mean, look, I could run through Brando Maea. I could run through kids like just looking at it, you got Egleen Perez, you got Urania, I mean, you got a lot of those kids at the lower levels that I think will push up. And like I said, you'll see Roderick and Lombard push high A next year. I think they're not going to hold either one of them back. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, you're kind of hitting on the fact that you also didn't have Everson Pereira, this year. I think if I'm not mistaken, Oswald Peraza had a ridiculously good July.
He did.
Really good July. So he's starting to turn the bat around a little bit there. So you have some pieces there that are unrecognized because they're not playing or they're not there right now. But look, I kind of agree with you on the standpoint of being higher up, but the lower levels is where we're pushing right now, and the bats are coming in, and I'm intrigued to see what happens with pitching because you just went and got 13 pitchers, right? If I'm not mistaken, in this draft class, and then you turned around and now we got to figure out what's going to happen with the hitting development on some of these kids, because I think the major league team needs more hitting than they do pitching, especially at this point now. And Will Warren has shown that. I mean, after he got the little jitters out the way, he pitched really good against one of the best lineups in baseball. You have to give him a lot of respect for going out there and throwing a game on short notice too. So I kind of agree with you. There's the higher things. You probably have Vivas too, man. Vivas, who's 751 OPSing right now. But other than that, I mean, those are fair questions.
Well, if you look at that lineup right now, you have Volpe, who's a young kid at shortstop. You got Jazz at third base, who's got multiple years of control, young kid. So those two positions are fairly locked up. Ben Rice has been impressive in spurts. He struggled at times, but you can see that the talent's there. You can see that kid has the clutch gene. He's hit some big home runs, big doubles late in games. I'm a big Ben Rice believer. I think he'll be a long-term solution there. You're only in the outfield, as long as they re-sign Juan Soto, that outfield is stacked. And you have Austin Wells behind the plate, who has been one of the best catchers in the American League for the last month and a half. So the only real organizational need is at second base. And they kept Oswald Peraza. They kept Jorbert Vivas. They kept Caleb Durbin. And those are three immediate options for next year. How great they are is another discussion. But I'm going
to piggyback on what you just said. Like Peraza, right? Peraza's out of options. And how old is he? 24 still?
Yes.
I mean, if he's out of options, unless they move him this winter, he's going to have more rope than anybody, and you know how Cashman doesn't just want to. Well, he kind of did that with Florial, right? Didn't he just trade
Right.
him? I mean, he could do that with with Peraza, but this is a kid who 2 years ago was a number 49 in all of baseball, right? How did he just fall? And he's not like he's 27, 28, 29. He's going to be 25 next year or 24. I mean, I don't even know. So you got to give that, you got to expect, not give, but you got to expect that he could probably be in that competition next year at second base.
Or third base, because he can
Yeah,
play
or
that
whatever. Yeah.
position. Yeah, he can play that position very well. So you have three internal options at second base, and all those young kids that we just listed are not expensive. So that clears up the payroll to spend that money on Juan Soto. So what is it that this team needs going forward?
Well,
Well,
Yankees like stars, man. But I think you keep forgetting that. Like Yankees like stars, and the kids that you just named are not don't have that star gene. Like they're not the name of the star is not behind them. Like a kid like Roderick or Lombard, they have that potential to get to that star status, which is why or Spencer Jones or Dominguez, like people get excited about that when you see a prospect. I think the Yankees need to replenish a little bit when they trade. See, I don't agree with Bobby saying like, "Hey, I think we should trade your boy for a relief pitcher, Nestor Cortez." I think you need to replenish
Oh,
the infield market a little bit. Like I think that the Cubs make a lot of sense for Nestor Cortez in the offseason. They need pitching, and they have a kid that they got a couple of years ago. He's starting to turn it around now. Um, drawing a blank. Give me 1 second. Christian Hernandez. They drafted him. He's a top 5 kid in that international class at A-ball. This year he's hitting 265, OPS and at 782 with 5 home runs, 4 triples, 35 stolen bases, and he plays shortstop and second. That's a kid that you can
yeah.
get there. You have to, in my opinion, Yankees have to find some kind of way to replenish the infield.
No, I absolutely. Let me just say, I mean, what you're just saying, that would be like would be my wish. But I also know how sometimes Cashman like just dumps one of those deals where he's going to trade something like that. I mean, absolutely, I agree. I mean, if they could get any kind of young and replenish the system with the kids they have, I mean, not even the kids they have. I mean, even a guy like players who have value in them, right? Like Ian Hamilton, right? He's still going to have value. Do you trade him for 2 or 3 young prospects and stuff to get that? I mean, I this is what I don't see. I don't see anything more than Soto this winter, right? I think it's going to be just Soto and hopefully, like what you're saying, trading these guys and bringing back stuff. I don't see them spending money. Like, you're going to hear like, oh, Bregman and stuff. They're not doing that. Okay.
no.
Uh, He wants to go, if anything, he's probably, meaning Hal, is going to want to go not touch that top tier. Because you got to remember one thing right now. Next year's draft, they're 10 spots behind. So they're not going to be picking at 26, 27, 28. They're picking in now in the mid 30s because they over the 300. They're on the top tier. So they lose that 10 spots. Okay.
Again.
Yeah, again, because
Isn't it one more and then they get like really really punished, right? If it's 3 years in
I
a row.
believe, yeah. So he's going to stay under, I think the number is 241. So they could go over 40 million. So that's 281. So like I said, I just did rough math last night, and I think I had Soto signing at like 46 million. And with arbitration, they're like 260, 265. So if you get rid of Grisham and Cortez and Trevino, that number probably drops to like 245, 246. So Cashman will have money. Like, I don't know, do they qualify offer Holmes because you're gonna get the draft pick, and then if he picks it up? But I mean, the way the game is right now, I think that's just, all talk, how much how they love him, and he's like that. They're gonna ride that horse into the postseason. There's nothing all 4 of us could do. They're gonna go on that horse, right? But in the winter, it's a different story, especially when money's in there. So they have a little ability, but like you just said, I don't think they want to. They're not going over $280 million next year.
I completely agree with that. Now, heading into the playoffs, the bullpen has not looked extremely good, but we have guys like Efros, Trevino, Nick Birdie, Ian Hamilton all coming back. And there's another interesting name that we've mentioned before, and Eric Reiselman, who would probably be up with any other organization right now. That kid is one of the reasons why you could trade Jack Neely, is because they're so similar stuff wise. Reiselman might have better stuff than Neely. Is there any chance you see him in September?
No.
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 No, you have too many pieces, man. I think if next year, 100%. But this year, you just have too many pieces. You just named like 4 or 5 different guys coming back, and they're already pretty full in the bullpen as it is, man.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, he's in Double A, right? So say he pitches 15 innings, right? And in those 15 innings, he's got I'm going to say an astronomical number, like 35 to 40 strikeouts. I think it would be, you're looking at where, what is his name? Rodriguez back in 2002 when they brought the Angels up, right? And but realistically, you're going to have to play with the 40-man roster. I mean, I think this is the team that we see for the rest of the year. I mean, in terms of the bullpen, I don't even know if, see, that's the thing. I don't even know if Efros comes up.
Yeah, he's been struggling recently, so there's a good chance he might not, and he has options, so you can leave him down and not affect his status too much. So
I was
how
gonna
do we
say,
go ahead?
I think because of the innings limits that Heal's gonna have end up running into, I'm curious if there were to be any call up, it would be Will Warren. He's on the 40 man already, and this way you have a starter that can replace Heal slash Nestor. Because I mean, with the way that Nestor's been, you can't rely on him. And
No.
while you can rely on Heal, you don't. I don't know if you don't want to, but I wouldn't expect the length out of Heal. So Warren would make the most sense out of any kind of September call up to me for pitching. It would be I would do Dominguez and Heal and Warren for Heal.
I think you kind of just answer your own question. I think what they're gonna do is once Clark Schmidt comes back, me and Dane talked about this the other day though. I think they're gonna piggyback. I don't think they're gonna take Luis Hill out of the starting rotation. I just think they're gonna cut his innings down in his starts and then piggyback Nestor Cortez off him.
Yeah.
That's what I think is gonna really happen.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I agree with
I,
that.
I think that's probably absolutely, what we're kind of looking at. Like I said, but I just have a feeling that we see 4 or 5 starts out of Warren because I think they really do want to see what they have in place for next year, especially if they do move. I mean, could they could possibly move both Schmidt and Cortez this winter. It would not surprise me if they do both. And go with if they bring in the Sasaki, that's if they bring him in, and then you have Will Warren. There's different ways they can do it. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. I think one of them will move, but you got to see what the offers are out there.
Now,
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I don't mean to cut you off 2 seconds. I'm still intrigued by Chase Hampton, man, because I think that Chase Hampton, has the ability to actually be a top front of the line starter. And they obviously didn't move him, so they felt some kind of way to keep him, this offseason. So I want to see, how he bounces back the rest of the year. And I think they're going to put him in the Arizona Fall League and let him kind of throw because he missed all that time. And if he kills in the Arizona Fall League, I think you're going to be looking at him possibly, triple A and on the cusp of coming up too, for the Yankees next year.
see, another move that keeps coming to my mind, and Nick and I have talked about this quite a bit, is Marcus Stroman. He's making $18 million. He's a solid mid-rotation starter. He's got 2 years left. There's value in that somewhere, and you can trade him, get some pieces back, and save that money. Do you think that that's a possibility, or am I just out in left field on that?
Yeah, I don't think it is, man. I think you kind of I mean, if they didn't trade Gleyber Torres, man, like I said this the other day, like they're not going to trade Marcus Stroman, man. They're just not. And Stroman's performed this year.
It all comes down with what the offer is, right?
Yeah.
If there's an offer where you're gonna trade money for money, then I could possibly see it. I think the one thing you got to watch though, I don't think the third year doesn't kick in unless he pitches 140 innings next
Right.
year. So that's something you might want to watch. I could see Stroman be a guy they move maybe at the deadline next year because they don't want to pick up that option. You know what I mean? And that's something you might think about. But you can't have enough pitching. So that's what I'm saying. If you do, whether it's Hampton, whether it's Warren, they're going to need that if they trade. I don't know. fully, I don't know if they're fully sold on Cortez, and I don't think they're fully sold on paying him like $7.5 million next year.
No, they can't do that one. And another kid that I'm really high on is Brock Selvage. He hasn't been great in the second half so far, but that kid looked really, really good in the first half, had
Mhm.
some big games. That's a quality left-hand starter. And he could be a piece in that rotation as soon as middle of next year. Maybe.
Is he okay? No, is he okay? How's he? What's going on with that? Is he gonna? Is
I
he hurt?
I heard
Yeah,
it.
he was on
Well,
the IL.
Nick, don't you have some information on that?
I mean, I was just told that he tried to push through it. I don't know exactly what the injury was, but I know he just tried to push through his injury. That's what I was told, and and that kind of has to do with why he struggled a little bit. No, he's a gamer. I mean, you guys got to interview him, and he just sounded like a full blown gamer, like a kid that just loves baseball and wants to pitch all the time. And I feel like the first like dosage we got of him was in that like futures game kind of thing in the summer spring
The
training.
spring breakout, yeah.
Yeah, and he killed it. I mean, I remember I was telling Carlos, I'm like, yo, let me see somebody else pitch. This guy's just throwing and striking everybody out. But like, he killed it.
That's what we were
So
saying in the camera well. We want to see someone else. We want photos of someone else, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, the question mark that I have for him, man, is just like I said, the Yankees really only have one left-handed pitcher, so I'd like to see what they do with their left-handed pitching going forward.
Well, who's the other kid in Double A? That Bobby,
Shields. Shields has been pitching.
yes,
He had a couple of rough games the last the last two inning outings out. What I'm really fascinated is the pitchers they drafted this year, because you're going to start hearing, and probably Brophy is going to hear it because he's going to maybe see it when they're instructional ball in September, in October, and over the winter, and when they come to spring training. Because to be honest with you, of the top six guys, uh, any one, maybe even two, this time next year, we could probably say here, possibility that they're knocking on the door, whether it be with the Yankees or someone else, because it's just a little click, whether it's Cunningham, Gage, Herring, even Hurd. It could be one of those guys. I don't think Carter's going to be a relief pitcher.
yeah,
I would be shocked if he's not. And I'm very high, and I think you are too, Nick, with Xavier Various.
Rivas,
Rivas.
Rivas.
yeah,
But he's coming off Tommy John, so he's going to be going to slow. But it wouldn't shock me if Cunningham, because if you look at their, Cape Cod League, numbers, they did very well. And that could transition pretty quickly to, I'm pretty sure, I don't think any of them is going to start in Double A, but
right.
High A might see 3 or 4 of those guys, and then once they're a Double A, it could pop pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's the problem. We did a whole like thing on Yankees Farm about it too. Like we did FCL roster, Tampa and High A. I mean, there were so many starters, we had to start piggybacking guys like that just were in there. Like I don't know what they're gonna do for that. I mean, Josh Grove's looking really good now, man. I mean,
Yeah, he is.
he's gonna be up at High A
Steve
soon.
Smith,
I mean,
what's going on with him? I mean, they haven't brought him up to
Don't
that's
get me
they haven't moved
started.
in. Yeah, what about Schlittler? I mean, the
yeah.
Cam Schlittler should have been up to Double A now at this point, man. That guy was killing it and it has been killing it in High A. But I
And
mean, you just go ahead.
I was just gonna say Gross is supposed to start tonight, but they're in a delay to start in Lakeland, the Tigers low A.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, the Yankees, I mean, they haven't moved. I don't really think they really moved anybody besides Ramirez or Shields
No,
yet
it's
at all.
that's been one of the frustrating things for me is a lot of these guys down in Tampa where I'm at, they're starting to get discouraged. Like Osiel Rodriguez as an example. Now he hasn't said specifically to me, but I know that he and a lot of other prospects are like, bro, what the heck? Like they're not
Well,
moving me.
he's always got it. He's always got the short stick, man.
Oh
I know
yeah,
he definitely
yeah,
frustrated last year too. He was pitching the FCL. I think he should be at Double A right now. That's really where
easily,
he should
yeah,
be.
yeah. But there's a lot of guys like you mentioned Jackson Castillo last time. He should be in Hudson Valley. Basically that whole lineup that they put out every day should have been turned around, sent up to Hudson Valley with the exception of one or two guys. And there's no reason I shouldn't be seeing Brando Maea and a lot of the other FCL guys, Edglin Perez, Engel Hirena, all those guys should be in Tampa right now.
Let me ask you a question because now the Florida, I still call it the Florida State uh, Gulf Coast Gulf Coast League is out, right? It's what is the FCL, right? That's what you
Yeah,
call it.
FCL.
Now it's over. I really wonder in the next, as I looked around, I looked at like how many games remaining with these minor league clubs. I really wonder in the next week or two, we see a mass release of players and those FCL kids get moved up to Tampa and the Tampa kids get moved up. Because usually, if I'm wrong, maybe I am, but it's usually I do look at transactions. They do happen in August.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we're looking, I don't want to say mass because I don't think it's going to be crazy amount, but I don't think it's out of the realm that we see 8 to 12 players released in the next 2 weeks. And we're going to start seeing some kids getting moved up.
Well, you just saw one. Jeter Downs just got released.
There's
Yeah.
one.
You know, so it's gonna start. It's gonna start happening soon. I think Dory Arias is gonna get released. I mean,
Yeah.
those players are gonna get released that are kind of on there to start moving up people. I just don't like how they hold a player does really good. I mean, like we talked about this last time, man. It's just the continuation. If Bobby, for instance, man, you've been working at the same power plant for 10 years, right? And then they bring somebody in to become supervisor, and you were in line to become supervisor. You're gonna be pissed off.
No, God,
Of
yeah. I mean,
course you are. And that's the problem. That's what the Yankees are doing now, man. Like they just don't bring kids up. Like I can name at least 12 to 15 dudes minimum that really should have been moved up. And starting with Schlittler, man, I don't know how he's still not in Double A right now.
I will say this, and you guys probably have heard the same thing too. There is no value in AAA. So what the problem is that you have a mass amount of players that have to be fit in either, and even, they have to fit in Hudson Valley or in Somerset. That's the problem. And because if they send somebody up to AAA, they don't feel they're getting the quality competition they're getting probably at Hudson Valley or at more importantly Somerset. So that's where I think the issues are. Like, you know, take what's it, Rileman, right? He's gonna be. I just bring him up to AAA. I don't think they see that they want to have him face the best, so they'll keep him there. I think that's where we're lacking as the pyramid goes up is that there's a stoppage. The pipeline stops. And so like I said, I don't know if they just cut players. I mean, they can't trade anybody right now. So they're gonna just have to, start cutting players.
Well, and they also have this bridge league. That's what I've heard it's been called. It's kind of like an extended instructional league kind of a thing that's supposed to start or have started on either this past Monday or this upcoming Monday. Um, I don't know. There's very, very little info about it. I don't know if media and scouts are allowed in. I can almost expect it's not open to fans like instructs wouldn't be. Um, I'm because the reason I'm intrigued about it is if they don't move guys up because they've been really reluctant to this year for one reason or another. I don't know why. I wouldn't be surprised if that's where a lot of the bats that they drafted. They didn't draft a lot of bats, but the couple bats that they did draft, I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they make their debut, so to speak. Now, while it's not an official pro debut because there's nothing on paper, there's no stats per se. Um,
Yeah, where are those guys going? Like, let's be honest over here. Like, past few years, right? I remember Sweeney getting some burn like a couple of years ago. I remember last year some of those kids played in some of those kids. I think even played Regio played in Tampa, right?
they all played in FCL for the most part. They played
Yeah,
like 3, 4, 5 games, and then they all got called up to Tampa. And
The new rule.
yeah.
that's the
The new
frustrating
rule.
thing is like, why aren't they doing anything?
Well, because of the new rule. Because if they assign them to the FCL after the season ends, then they don't get that extra year of Rule 5 eligibility.
So they're gonna
So
just
it's
hold
the
them off.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's basically what all the teams are going to do. That's why the owners moved the FCL up and closed it off so early because they can put those guys there and then start moving. The problem, like I said, is still going to be the guys you have to move. Like, I mean, don't even get me started on Cade Smith. I mean, what are we doing, man? I mean,
Oh, I
that
know.
guy,
Yeah.
that guy needs to move, man. He needs to get out of there now. Like,
So then I
It's
don't understand then why Toronto, because Toronto is one of the neighboring teams that we have down here. I don't know if it's just the UDFAs that they've sent up to their low A team Dunedin, but they because I get the transactions from them, called up or they sent, I guess you could say, 5 or 6 different guys to Dunedin that were all from this year, and they're not international kids, which is I
the
don't
the drafted kids.
yeah I don't know if they're drafted like 1 through 20. I haven't really looked too much into them, but they're all from this year because when I looked them up just quickly, they weren't in FCL. And it didn't say that they were transferred from FCL to Dunedin. They were just sent to Dunedin. So I don't
Now,
know. Maybe it's just they're playing around, like you said, with Rule 5, and then, they don't hold too much value because they're undrafted free agents.
now, one big name that we have not talked about yet that there was a lot of smoke around possibly being traded, and that's Spencer Jones. How does he fit into this organization going forward? Is he a trade piece? Is he a project that they work on for a couple of years and see if he can get that strikeout rate down to a level that is acceptable? What do you guys see as the future for him?
I think a lot of that depends on whether or not they sign Soto or lock in Soto. And to me, I think the bigger question would be, what do they do with Pereira? Because he's already on the 40 man. Once he comes back from Tommy John, are you going to have Pereira and Jones in AAA next year? Or are you going to have Pereira um, in the Bronx? I don't know. I don't know what the
I,
deciding factor is there.
I think Pereira is 100% a trade piece this winter.
Yeah.
Probably so, yeah.
I think the biggest question, man, is what I agree with Juan Soto, but what happens with Giancarlo Stanton? I mean,
Yeah.
that's going to be the guy that's the biggest question mark, period. Because if you can take the DH factor out of it, because that's all he does now at this point in his life.
Right.
But you're going to have to start alternating that, and if you can put Judge there, then you have spots for Spencer Jones, and you can move people throughout. I mean, that's the one I'm most curious about, him and Brandon Maea, because in my opinion, Maea is the best center field defensive player that you have in your entire system, hands down, especially when it all comes together. Um, as of right now, I'm going to say as of right now, because I think Ruben Castillo, who they're signing next year, is a very elite center fielder. But, um, you know, that those are question marks that we're going to have to really start seeing, because if Giancarlo is still on this team, I think they're going to give Spencer Jones that he's still going to be here, man. You just can't throw that kind of talent out the window or trade it unless it's for a legitimate superstar like Juan Soto. And I don't think any of those players are available next year. But that would be what I would say about Spencer Jones. I think he's going to be here next year, and I think they're going to work on it. He's going to be in AAA, and I think we could see him up probably at some point at the halfway mark.
You're not going to just get rid of Giancarlo, though. He has too much money and too many years left.
Well, you know what? I'll say something, and it alludes to both people, right? So this morning on MLB radio, and I agree with this. Crochet hurt himself by saying those things.
Oh,
No, let's play this out right now, right? Say they sign, I think they're going to sign Soto, right? Say they sign Soto before the winter meetings, okay? At that point, I mean, if I'm the White Sox, unless I get blown away, I'm going to hold out and have, you could then trade Jones for Crochet, right? You got 2 years left. I could see something like that. But as Nick just said, I think what they're holding him back for, and they'll give him that year next year to development, is because of Stanton. Stanton, I think, is going to be here next year, right? But after next year, he's got 19 and $15 million. Next year, he's making 32. I think it's going to be easier to move him after 25. And let's be honest here. I don't think Jones is ready spring of next year. Could he be ready this time next year? Possibly, right? Could we see Stanton get moved or released? He's going to get hurt, right?
yeah.
What's going to happen to him. So, but it's the $32 million that insurance is still covering is why they're not going to get rid of that. So once they get rid of, they're on the hook. So if something happens to him, the insurance picks it up. So it's kind of goes in hand. And Stan, I mean, excuse me, Jones is 23 this year. I think he's 24 next year, right?
Mhm.
So he could be 25 in 2026 and still be perfectly all right. I think it goes to those two things. Yes, one, if Soto signs, he is a trade piece. And if you could get that pitcher, then maybe you do it. And or he is going to be the protection for Stanton if he gets hurt, or they're just tired of his I don't want his antics, but his body breaking down.
Mhm.
I don't think the Yankees make any moves for any pitchers, especially let's say assume they get Sasaki. I mean, which I don't think, but if assuming they do get Sasaki, there's no way that you can get a Garrett Crochet. Where's he going to pitch? You're just
No,
not. There's no spots.
no,
There's no spots in the rotation.
I'm only saying this if they don't get him, and
But even so, there's no spots. There isn't. I mean, I don't think they move Clark Schmidt. I'll be honest with you. I think they like Clark Schmidt way too much. I don't
I
know who
think
pitched it
yeah,
on here before.
Mhm.
I don't think they move him. I also don't. Garrett Cole's not going anywhere. Luis Hill killed it this year. I don't think they trade him.
No.
And you can't move Rodon because you got a no trade clause.
right.
So that leaves you Marcus
Stroman,
Stroman
yeah.
plus Will Warren. You know what I'm saying? And then if
Like I said, I think there's going to be let's put it this way: there are going to be better packages than Spencer Jones. Let's be honest.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I mean, not if he keeps pitching these crazy demands of wanting you trade me and I want an extension right away.
well, I'll tell you something. Come winter time, if he gets moved, then he's got 2 more years of control on his agent. I mean, the MO, I forget, was it Phillips this morning said first thing he does this winter is fire his agent and join the Boris Corporation, which would not shock me.
Yeah.
Now, going around, what do we think we're going to see from the major league team the rest of the year? How do you think this team is going to finish out? John, we'll start with you.
I think they're going to be. I mean, obviously they're in contention now, but I think depending on how the Orioles do, they'll either end up as in first or second place. Um, I mean, the Rays had they had a fire sale for the most part. They lost basically the whole team, and there's nothing there. Boston, I think, is going to give the Yankees a hard time. Um, they've been doing pretty well recently, but am I projecting all the way out? Like, are they going to win the World Series kind of thing?
You think they have the team that could do that?
I think they can get to the World Series. I don't know if they can win the World Series. I mean, if I had to go that far and predict, I would say right now Dodgers Yankees kind of where I would lean with that if the stars aligned the right way. Um, but I think the Dodgers have the better team than the Yankees.
Nick, what about you?
Man, I don't know if the Dodgers make the World Series this year. I mean, the Phillies are still a problem. Um, you have them out there, and you can never count out the Braves upsetting people. But I'll be honest with you, man. I think we finished in second. I just think the Orioles just have too much of a punch right now, and they brought up Jackson Holiday, and I think that second taste of that is gonna really show. I think he hit a grand slam yesterday.
He did.
So they just have an extreme offense with some killer pitchers, especially Corbin Burns. And you know, I think they're gonna be the team to kind of beat right now in the AL East, as hard as that is for me to say, because love the Yankees through and through. But we'll see what happens, man. I mean, I think we're gonna finish at the first wild card spot if I had to estimate.
Bobby?
I think because the schedule is just really, really easy the month. I don't know if they pull ahead a lot, but I think I said a fool's gold. I mean, I could see them going like 23-10 this next 33 games. For me, the season starts September the 9th because right on September the 9th, they're playing the Red Sox. I think they're playing the Pirates. They're going to do a West Coast. They come to Seattle. They're going to go to the House of Horrors. That is the Oakland Coliseum. Right. And then I think they play the O's. That stretch to me is going to dictate. I will say this. Who am I rooting for? I'm rooting for the Mariners. I'm rooting for the Twins. And I'm rooting for the Royals. Because the years that the Yankees usually do something good, it's teams like that who are in the playoffs. right?
Mhm.
And I'm not saying I fear the Astros. I just don't want the Astros, right? I'm
Right.
not as scared as the O's as, because I think depending on the matchups, I think the O's could get knocked off in the first round. They did last year, right? I just want to see, those kind of teams. If the Royals and the Twins and the Mariners in the playoffs, along with us, doesn't matter if we finish first or we finish second. I think they have a good path to the World Series. Whether they win or is another thing. I think it would be, put it this way, getting to the American League Championship Series, anything less is a major disappointment.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
You're one of the last four teams. I know fans don't want to hear that. They want the World Series. But you got to look at from the how they look at it. And I know everybody hates the front office. I get it. I'm not going to get into that conversation. But if they're in the last four teams, they're in the last four teams.
Yeah. Now, John, where can everybody find you and see your stuff that's you've been posting all the time?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, all at Brophy Baseball.
Nick?
On Instagram, you can check me out on Yankees IFA signings.
Bobby?
I'm always on Twitter. You guys know me.
Okay. Make sure to follow these guys. This is a fantastic panel. Thank you guys so much for being here. Smack that like and subscribe for Carlos on your way out. And thank you guys so much. Have a good day.
Thank you guys. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye.